live in a stereotypical suburb in Columbus, Ohio, where people are often out walking around the neighborhood. I'm all for giving a polite wave or nod to walkers and other drivers. It's just neighborly after all. But my husband takes things a step further, and when driving by a walker, will toot his car horn and aggressively wave to people we don't know. I believe this behavior would lead the walker, the recipient of the exuberant greeting, to think they know the person in the car, but they don't. I think this is intentionally misleading, and my husband does it because he thinks it is humorous, not because it is friendly or neighborly. I argue this is a form of bullying, since it is done for his enjoyment, regardless of the confusion it may cause our unsuspecting neighbors. So here's the question. Am I right, and my husband should cease his over-the-top greetings to people he doesn't know, or should I just not let this bother me? So in the neighborhood, husband honking, waving, I'm imagining a big grin on his face, waving at the person with wide eyes, and they're like, what do we know, honey, do we know that? Like, and that's what he finds enjoyment in, I'm guessing, based on this question. Is that rude, or should she just let this go? Or he, it could be two guys.
That's actually a little bit of tough, because in all of these things that we're going to have like some nuanced responses with context.
Yes. And this is what we should call out. Sorry, Dylan. We should call out the different considerations, right? Mm-hmm. Because like if context matters, or if like those are the things that people want to hear, we need to know the variables or the considerations. Go ahead. Sorry.
All right. So I'm going to try to respond in the most basic form to the question with only the information I have, which is, I don't know that it's bullying. The term was bullying was used, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know that bullying feels a little strong, but I think when it's only for your amusement, it's a practical joke level, and there's no opportunity to like follow up and engage on the back end of the joke, right? So like you pull a prank on somebody in your office, assuming it's pretty harmless. Typically, you have an opportunity to circle back and be like, and kind of explain, and then they know that it was a joke. This one, you would never get that explanation. So I don't think it's necessarily something that you should let go, because it does feel a little more rude than like a prank. Is it hurting anybody? No. I think if there's a part of you that can try something like that and try to be silly, your own neighborhood feels like a good place to do it, because presumably people might at least recognize your car and go, oh, I think they live down the street. Maybe they're just, so I don't know. I think some of the nuance to it is it feels a little nicer in your own neighborhood if you're like trying to be playful with your neighbors than somewhere you don't know anybody, to me. But I don't think it's something necessarily you just let go. Because I do think it could be rude, and then people could be like genuinely like surprised, her thinking they didn't say. I think of the overthinkers is what I'm trying to say. The person on the other end of that's like, oh, I didn't wave back. Do I know him? Oh, I should have waved. What if I offended somebody that I knew? That doesn't feel light and playful anymore.
So I'll speak as an overthinker. The worst that happens is I'm a little confused. That's the worst that happens to anybody.
Maybe to you, though.
So I was going to make the case that because it's in your neighborhood, that's actually a little meaner, because
Interesting.
It's a more closed environment where people think I should know that person, depending on the size of your neighborhood. If you're on an interstate moving in tandem with somebody in another lane and you do that, mm-hmm. you beep and wave and you make a big stupid grin. Mm-hmm. Their natural assumption is this is just a person being goofy. I don't know them. No right. harm, no foul. But because it's in your neighborhood, it's actually more like, oh, whose car is that? But again, bullying does feel strong, because the worst that happens is somebody's just a little confused, I think.
I could be swayed off of that argument a little bit.
But so I'm not just trying to be centrist for being centrist's sake. I think the truth lies somewhere in the middle here, where it's like you are finding the husband is finding some sick enjoyment out of people being confused, and that moment of what on their face, he's finding a sick pleasure from that. But is it bullying or being mean? Because if somebody ever circled back to the husband and figured it out somehow, they'd be like, "Hey, why are you so overly nice and smiley and beepy?" Like, that's really all that you've done.
Yeah. Hypothetically speaking, what if her perspective of it being aggressive waving is off, and that the person who is doing this is at the controls of the podcast right now, and spoke with his wife about this to make sure that like she actually doesn't care that I bring it up.
Okay, good. I got real scared.
I just wanted to see the looks on your faces.
I got real nervous.
We just told everyone it was anonymous.
Well, okay, so this one was my wife. The jerk husband is me, and she wrote that.
Okay, we're not going to dispute that part.
She wrote this thing in a manner that makes it sound like she's like strongly trying to plead a case. So exaggerating on purpose, because she copied and pasted this from her sending it somewhere else, because we might get on another podcast with this story, and the format that they use, the shtick that they play, and everybody knows this, is that's what you do. You play it up.
Yeah, makes better content.
Right. So that said, so my wife isn't actually like this upset about it. And she certainly doesn't actually think it's bullying. But yeah, so it's what it is, driving through the neighborhood, and it's a lot like what the thing is saying. I would say like it's not aggressively waving. It's just like and it's not like a long honk. It's a beep, hand in the air. Is all it is.
A true toot.
Oh.
It's just a toot, hand in the air, keep going. And then I do sometimes make the comment like, I wonder if they're confused right now. And then as I'm driving away. So the rest of everything that you guys said is absolutely correct. I do get sick enjoyment out of confusing people sometimes. And yeah, no, I'm totally not concerned about circling back and explaining the joke. And
a toot in the hand in the air, all good.
Yeah.
Even if you were aggressively waving, like, and a couple toots.
Yeah, which I'm not. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
But I have done this to strangers on like street corners in town before too. So like I've done it like not in my neighborhood either. But I try to kind of pick and choose. And I don't do. I mean, I've done this probably like 2 or 3 times with my wife in the car. I've probably done it like 10 times total my whole life. But yeah.
So let's pretend. Go ahead.
I was going to say it technically feels harmless. However, I just think about have you ever gone through a fast food drive-thru and they're being really over the top just for the sake of, you can tell the fast food workers trying to like, they do an insane accent or whatever. Yeah. And if you catch somebody in the wrong mood, that comes across as very obnoxious. And teenagers do that all the time as they're trying to figure out their sense of humor. They're really trying to be over the top just to get a reaction. And again, if you catch somebody on the wrong day, the wrong hour, they didn't get the promotion at work because Dylan did. And then they really hate Dylan. I just feel like you could that could be the thing that triggers somebody for the day. And you can't trigger warning like with everybody, right? But because it does feel harmless. But there is that part of me that at most you might tick somebody off here and there.
Yeah. If that's how I end up ticking someone off, I'm okay with it.
Well, and as you explained it back with a quick honk and a quick wave is a lot different than obviously being obnoxious for the sake of being obnoxious. Is different, very different.
All right, so let's pretend like that didn't come from Kendall's wife. That's the perfect type of question.
Great.
It's about something that's really trivial either way. There's a lot of detail, and it's fun to break down and talk about.
It is.